All right, so dear students, welcome back. Good afternoon, and we're looking at Foundations of Law, HOX 6061. So we'll be looking at lecture 6 today, the nature of ethics from the Moodle notes. Of course, the video lectures have different numbering. Um, so just before we go about it, couple of things. Number one, in the course participants forum, I have raised this issue about exam dates and possibilities. So make sure that you check it out and see if the timings are suitable for you. It appears that, well, the exams will be online. I don't think coronavirus is going to disappear in November now. Okay. So yeah, well, we do it online, and there'll be three exam dates, but of course you can only do the exam twice. Yeah. So check it out, and if those dates don't look suitable for some reason, then yeah, let me know. Although I don't think many of you will be traveling to Vietnam or Honduras or Hawaii or anywhere for New Year. Yeah. If you are planning to, my advice is don't. Okay. Then homework one, if you may recollect, was put up quite a long time ago. There are still 6 days left, so I hope you all remember homework one, and so don't forget to do that. Homework two, I've also put up today, and the deadline for homework 2 is 30th of November, so you have like 33 days for that now. Remember, as I said even before, if you don't do the homework on time and you don't upload it on time in Moodle, then I'm sorry, I can't give you any grades for it. No hard feelings, nothing personal. It's just that, if you can't do something in 30 days, then you really need to, you know, examine your priorities. Yeah. So of course, now let's look at the nature of ethics and professional ethics. This is something I'll be talking about today in more detail, and I'll also put up some uh, yeah, videos for you, and so you can see how this thing actually plays a role. Usually in the classroom I talk about this also. A lot of people have this idea that somehow lawyers, only make 500 euros per hour, and after 4 years in a law firm you will be driving a Ferrari. After another 4 years you will be having, I don't know, a gold plated Maserati, or crazy plans and ideas that people have. They think about law in in weird ways, where it's not always so rosy. And of course, I'll be putting up this information about, it's a news program about lawyer suicides, and you'll be very surprised to see or to hear as to why lawyers are so depressed. In fact, many surveys have been conducted in the United States, for example, and they have looked at which professions cause the greatest amount of depression amongst the professionals, and law tends to be in the top five. Um, well, there are different reasons for it, so maybe that video or press article, whatever I find, I'll hopefully be able to share it with you, and then you can see what ails the legal system. There are, of course, a couple of issues here. There are ethical issues, and then this attitude, this culture that is generated and encouraged in law firms. So first of all, about ethical issues, well, as a parent, I may have some issues when I'm dealing with criminal law or criminals, and I have to defend a client who has done the most horrible criminal deeds with little children, for example. So of course, well, people will tell you, well, as a lawyer, you don't have to take it personally. It's all about objectivity and detachment. And of course, nobody is guilty unless nobody is guilty, unless the courts pronounce it. So everybody is innocent in the eyes of law until the courts, which follow the due process and procedure, decide that yes, you are guilty. So until that decision is made that you are guilty, you are innocent. And of course, people will tell you as a lawyer, well, it's not your job to judge who your clients are or what they do. But yeah, it does have an impact on you. You could, of course, always say, I will not take up such matters. Yeah. So you will only take up family law matters or only take up intellectual property matters and nothing else. But that's not always an option for everybody, especially when you are a young lawyer and are starting out. You need to take up whatever matters come up, whatever cases come up. You can't really be picky or choosy about things. And then, of course, you may have to defend a client who is this very abusive spouse, drinks and hits and molests little children or whatever. That sort of has an impact on you, not immediately, but after you do such cases, 4, 5, 10, 15, 35 of them, over a period of time, it all sort of starts building up inside you. So there are these ethical issues that are very crucial. And then, of course, as a lawyer, it's very tempting also to play the devil's advocate, to sort of play both sides. You very often will come across a situation where sometimes, you are pressurized into doing something which inside in your heart, in your brain, this is wrong, you should not be doing it, but you just sort of get pressurized into doing this. And that's when you realize that having a legal profession, becoming a legal professional, there are a lot of obligations and duties also. You have a lot of rights, and of course you can do a lot of things, but at the same time you have to be very careful, because you're not in the like an ordinary person on the street anymore. You have the right to access the courts, the legal justice system. You get an intimate knowledge about how law works. And of course, it's easy for me to say, bend the law, don't break the law, and don't get caught, but it's not always that straightforward. Then there's also this culture that you have to fight to win. Yeah, loser gets nothing, winner takes it all. And nobody's going to come and ask you to represent them as a lawyer if you have a reputation of losing all your cases. So now that's a situation that also causes a lot of problems, because if you want to win by hook or by crook, then sooner or later it's going to have an impact on your psychology, on your on your internal the way your brains work. So we'll talk a bit about some of these things here. Now, lawyers are required in most cases, yeah, and of course, if it's a court procedure issue, you need to have bare minimum knowledge. And of course, as a lawyer, you're trained to do that. You present evidence, the points of law, you make arguments, and then the judges will be helped in making their decisions. Now, of course, you don't have to be represented by a lawyer. You can always go and fight your own law case if you want to. But the judges don't have the patience to teach you what the law is. The judge will say, hey, come on, go hire a lawyer. If you can't afford a lawyer, then the state may give you some lawyer or legal service or something. But nobody wants amateurs who have no idea, who study from Wikipedia School of Law. And then especially the people who say, oh, I don't care what the law is because the Constitution says this word. Constitution is just one thing. Of course, it's an umbrella. It sort of covers a lot of issues. But when you come across somebody who starts talking about the Constitution, then you know that this person has no real knowledge about the law. This person is just stuck on one document because that's the only book that she or he has read. Law is about a lot more books and a lot more laws and a lot more aspects, treaties, conventions, directives, regulations. It's not just enough to know the law of Estonia or of Finland just because you are from Estonia or from Finland. You need to now also understand that there's the European Union part over here, and politicians can say whatever they want to say, and somebody will say, well, I want to introduce the death penalty. Yeah, you can't do that, right? Because it's not just an Estonian decision or a Finnish decision anymore. This thing now has implications at the European Union level as well. So of course, a lawyer's first duty is to the administration of justice. Yeah. Now, I'm afraid I may have sounded very cynical in some of my earlier lectures, and given you all this sort of crazy advice about how bend the law without breaking the law, and how to do all those things. Well, yeah, but you have to be a bit careful about these things. Yes, you can have humor. You can use humor to get out of a tricky situation. Anybody who practiced law or practices law will tell you that judges are also human beings, and so I mean, it's not a problem to be sometimes witty, or to know your way around things. But of course, end of the day, you have to promote justice, and then so you have to have the highest degree of fidelity, loyalty, and integrity. All right, these are very important terms here, because nobody wants to be represented by a lawyer who is a slime ball or something. Everybody wants, or has expectations from lawyers. Law is a very learned profession in a way. You're educated, and you know the law system, the legal structure, and people have expectations from you. So of course, you have to be careful about this. You have to have this image of a lawyer, and you need to play the part. All right, you cannot be a part-time lawyer and a part-time something else. It has to be comparable and acceptable. All right, this brings us, of course, also to what sort of professions a lawyer can have besides the legal profession. Well, you could be maybe uh, you know involved in law studies. That's perfectly acceptable. You could be a director of a company, because you're giving legal advice on the side. So all these sort of things are acceptable. You cannot become a striptease artist or a circus player, or there are rules for these sort of things, and we'll talk about them as we proceed with this lecture. So as a lawyer, you have to be a counselor, advocate, and public servant. And of course, people come to you and they tell you personal things, which are very confidential. And confidentiality is very important here. As a lawyer, one of the biggest problems I and many people like me have faced is that a client comes to you and me, and gives me incomplete information. Now, how the hell am I supposed to figure out the missing parts? So of course, my advice would be, if you want proper legal advice, you have to tell me everything. All right, because if you leave out some details, then I have incomplete information. And to shoot somebody, I need bullets, right? So the bullets are the information, and without that information which the client gives me, then the gun is just an empty gun. All right, figuratively speaking. So of course, you need to have the highest ethical standards. You need to inform the clients that, look, whatever they tell you is going to be a professionally held secret, and it's not going to be disclosed. All right, which means, as a lawyer, you can't have a meeting with a client, some famous person, and then go on Facebook or Twitter and shoot your mouth off and say something stupid like hashtag I gave advice to the prime minister of somewhere or whatever. You can't do that, obviously. So there are these highest standards of professional and ethical conduct, which we'll talk about. It's a very systematically organized area of law. So legal ethics are important, because if you don't follow the legal ethics, if the lawyer is corrupt, if the law system is viewed as corrupt, then it affects the whole society. All right. So of course, you need to have this effective disciplinary regime for the legal profession. And if you have some lawyers who don't follow the rules properly, then of course they have to be punished, because otherwise the whole system will just collapse. If people don't take law seriously, then that society is in serious trouble. So well, now comes the issue of ethics and morality, and this is something which can be a bit problematic sometimes. In the past, I've had instances where I've given a lecture, and afterwards a student who has also studied philosophy has come to argue, like, what the hell are you talking in class? That's not what morality is, or what is right or wrong, or good or bad. But again, I'm a lawyer. This is a law course. We are in a law school. So you need to remember that, all right? This is not your usual philosophy of life class. This is not about good ethics. This is not a course to become, priests in a church or something. That's not this. All right, this is not a bishop training academy or something. All right, you're gonna be learning law, and as lawyers, we have different forms of not different ethics, but different understanding of ethics. All right, to put it in such a way, ethics and morality are looked at in a different way by lawyers. And of course, why would that be so? Because you have this concept of good and bad, ethical and non-ethical, all right, right and wrong, and then ethics and morality. And this is a wide picture, and it's good. Everybody should have a ethical compass. I mean, you should have some morality inside you. That's what makes us human beings. If you forget the morality part, society can go down really bad, in a really bad way. Just look at, for example, Nazi Germany. All right, you had people who were, you know, Germans in the 1920s, 1930s. These were like the creme de la creme of European society, the best of the philosophers, musicians, artists, whatever. I mean, whoever, they were the Germans. And then you saw how it went downhill with Hitler, and how people sort of forgot certain aspects. And then this thing was a train wreck waiting to happen. It took time, yeah, 7 8 years, not even 7 33. So 1933 was when Hitler came in. 1939 he was already on the way to World War II, September 1939. And even up to 1940 he was winning, so people were like, yeah, it's okay, it's good. But yeah, 41 42 1942 onwards, you could already see how this is not working out. Yeah, this is German society coming down. So of course, well, then it's not sufficient to say, oh, we didn't know what Hitler was up to. Come on, everybody knew what he was up to. All right, so you have to be very careful about this. It's a lesson. Society has to have certain right, ideas about right and wrong, ethics and morality. Okay, and of course we can get this from cultural viewpoint, from religious viewpoint, from a social viewpoint. There are all sorts of different aspects to them, but we don't deal with that broad picture in this course, all right, because we are lawyers or law students. So ethics and law is somehow different from ethics and other spheres of life. So first of all, of course, the legal system is an institution of the state, and you see that a lot in all these different things, right? For example, with artificial intelligence, we have a problem here. The laws are designed for human beings. So who can have a copyright? A human being. Who can invent a patentable invention? A human being. That's how the laws are designed. And then, of course, if you have a monkey that takes a photograph, the monkey selfie case, which I'll talk about more in detail when you come to the second and third year, monkey cannot get copyright, well, because it's not meant for monkeys. There was this debate in, I think, Denmark or somewhere, that somebody said, oh, the orangutan in the zoo is so clever, it's almost human, it should be given the right to vote. Right? Of course not, right? The society that we live in is designed for human beings, and what that of course means is, if I kill a human being, well, that's very bad, and of course I would get punished severely for that. But if I was to kill an ant or a mouse, or a rabbit or a dog or a horse, of course there'll be outrage. But you cannot compare me killing a horse with me killing a human being. They are two different levels of the animal kingdom, because human society deals with laws made for human beings. And so of course, if you take this to the next level with artificial intelligence, the code writes the code. The code creates the source code. Again, you're having the same problem, because the human made laws are meant for human beings, so we cannot understand what rights should be given to robots or artificial intelligence machines or things like that. So you see all of this. um, so what that basically means is, again, ethical values are implemented by the state in different ways. So if I hurt you as a student, a human being, the punishment is different. I hurt an animal, the punishment is different. All right. And then, of course, you could have some laws in which there are no ethical impact at all. It's like, so you're supposed to be driving at 50 kilometers per hour and you are driving at 55 kilometers per hour, or 60 kilometers per hour. So you are 10 kilometers over the speed limit. Have you become unethical? Have you done something, ethically reprehensible, morally horrible? No, nothing. You're just over driving, over speeding. Sorry. But again, the law says, well, that's that. It's not about ethics. This is a law. This is a number. You broke the number, and so that's it. Yeah. It's the same also, for example, with what is the motivation for the state here. Okay. I'll talk about this. Sorry, I just remembered this, so I made a note of it here. So another difference, of course, is motivation. Why do people obey the law? Well, of course, if the signal is red on the zebra crossing, I will not cross, not because because it's unethical or something, but because I don't want to get caught, because I could be charged with jaywalking or things like that, or a car may come super fast and bump into me, and then I'll have a big problem health wise. So of course, a lot of things we do is because, or we don't do, are because the state sanctions us. All right. So the state says you cannot have drugs. Yeah, okay. So instead of having drugs, you have alcohol. Yeah. So these are all state sanctioned, and so the motivation for obeying laws is very different from the motivation for making ethical judgments. It could be because, well, it's like, for example, if I have a child, I can't abandon the child, not because it's incorrect to do so, morally speaking, but because the law expects me as a parent to pay for the child, and if I want to abandon my family and run away with some younger babe or something, then of course, well, I still have to pay not just alimony to my wife, but also maintenance for the children and things like that, until they become 18. So of course, so you have this motivation factor, which is very different in law vis-a-vis other parts of life. Then of course, ethical systems have this broader based commitment, but law sets only the minimum standards which are acceptable to society. So for example, the law would say that the age of consent for sexual relations are, I don't know, 14 or 15 or 18 or whatever. Different countries have different age of consent, and now let's say the age of consent is 18. Yeah. And well, nowadays people grow up quite fast, and I'm Asian, so I'm like 45, and of course, when Indians are like 18, they look really tiny. So for example, let's say I go to a bar and I meet this big woman that I think is a woman, and then we are drunk and we have a good fun time, and then go to bed or whatever, come back later on with a hangover like, oh my god, what happened? And now it turns out that she is 17 years and 11 months old. Yeah, I would say, like, so what? Well, no, that's statutory rape, because if the age of consent is 18, it is 18. All right. And if I am 1 month short or 1 week short or 2 days short of that 18 limit, then that's a big problem here, because the law has set the minimum acceptable standard, and that's it. It's the same like drunk driving. All right. So there's this number. If you are above that number, even by a little point, you are officially drunk and you should not be driving the car. As simple as that. Okay, you can't say, oh, what the hell, I'm just 1 point above or half a point above. Well, no. this is the minimum standard. You have this, it's okay. You cross this limit, you're in trouble. So of course there are two systems of ethics. One is formalism, and you can read from the notes Immanuel Kant and John Rawls and the social contract theory, and all of these very fancy terms. So of course formalism is basically based on ethics, and you have a duty to a moral obligation not to lie, to keep your promises, not to divulge confidences, and you should not treat others in a bad way, because you should treat others the way you want to be treated yourself, which sounds very nice in theory. All right. So of course also that means is a lot of the problems we face while making judgments, personal or whatever, is that we assume certain things. All right. So let's say there is this Estonian person or a Finnish person or whatever, your country person, and then somebody from outside of a different country. Then already we have some crazy ideas and images in our mind. So these are called biases, and it's a bias, and a bias, BIAS. It's a personal bias. Everybody has one. And everybody has opinions. Yeah, so of course we have these preconceived notions, and that's the cause of all the problems. So if you were to look at Pawan and try to figure out, did Pawan do something right or wrong, maybe one way of dealing with that would be you take away the name Pawan, you take away the face, you take away the skin color, the race, religion, whatever, sex or whatever, and then you just have a person. And then you have to now decide, did this person do something right or wrong? And you don't have any personal biases now, because you don't have any information about this person. So in that case, you don't know whether this person is Estonian or Finnish or European or outsider or whatever. So of course, this really could improve the ability to evaluate terms of a fair agreement, which is why if you look at the symbol of justice, she's a woman and she has this black band around her, so she can't see, and then she has the scales, with truth and justice, and then of course, so that's very nice in theory, but formalism can, of course, then cause problems. So let's say you have a situation where somebody is born somewhere, Middle East or somewhere, and now this person has acquired a Finnish passport or an Estonian passport, and now, so was not born naturally as a citizen, but became naturalized and acquired the citizenship subsequently. And so this question has come up, like for example in France, and so people who have acquired the citizenship, and now they commit a terrorist act. And so the easiest thing to say is, well, let's cancel this person's citizenship and send this person back to wherever she or he came from. And if we don't know where she or he came from, then just put them on a boat and put them in the ocean, and it's their problem. No, you can't do that, right? Because the law would say, for example, in the Estonian case, that if you are born Estonian, if you are born as an Estonian citizen, then your citizenship cannot be revoked. So that automatically means you're now creating two different sets of citizens. One are those who are born, and so they have a better, unique position. And then the second are those who are naturalized. They were born somewhere else and they came to Estonia, and now they have citizenship too, but that citizenship is not at the same level. It's unequal, from the example you saw. So of course, this can be a problem under formalism, because what formalism would indicate is that this is not the right approach. If you have a passport, you are the citizen, and all the rights are the same. So that's the same with, for example, dual citizenship. So let's say I am Indian, I take Estonian citizenship, for example, then under the law, I cannot have two passports, Estonian and Indian. No, I have to give up the Indian citizenship to become an Estonian national. But let's say my wife, she is Estonian, but what if she was born in Sweden? She had Estonian parents but was born in Sweden or in Australia. Then you have a problem here, because under Swedish law, she would then be a Swedish national. So she cannot give up the Swedish passport even if she wants to. Yeah, but she cannot give up Estonian passport even if she wants to, because she's Estonian by birth, and she has the right to Estonian citizenship. So now you have a real problem here. I mean, someone like her could have two passports. Yeah, two passports because of this strange twist in the law. It's not supposed to be allowed, but yeah, what can the country do now? I mean, she wants to give up her Swedish passport, she cannot, and she is stuck with the Estonian passport also. So of course, so you see here under formalism, this could be a problem area. On the other hand, you have consequentialism, and basically it says, it's not about you, it's about society, the bigger good, the common good. We need to focus on everybody, not just the individual. All right. So for example, in the Philippines, you have this president, and he has declared war on drugs. And so basically, the idea is you don't need to have a trial. You see anybody with drugs, just shoot that person. I mean, what the hell? You can't do that, right? Because that's not acceptable. But that's the law that they have imposed, and they are saying, well, it works. You see, you should not give criminals a chance. Just shoot them. But of course, what if somebody is not a criminal? What if I am just stuck somehow, wrong place, wrong time? Somebody gives me a bag and says, "Hey, Pawan, can you hold my bag while I go to the toilet?" And then the cops come, and then they find I have like half a gram of cocaine somewhere, and I'm like, I don't even know. I was just holding this bag for somebody. I was just being a nice person, and then I get shot for nothing. Yeah, so of course you can have these sort of problems. Or in Australia, there was this very strange case. There was this German couple, this man and his wife, and they were both doctors. Yeah, and so they had migrated from Germany to Australia, and they were in Darwin, North Australia, in those places where you have more crocodiles than people, and then of course not so many doctors, and so they were a real asset to the new community that they had gone to, and everybody was very happy with them, because you have this German couple, man and woman, husband and wife, both are doctors, and they are both now in the middle of nowhere, in Australia, northern Australia, treating people with, I don't know, crocodile bites or snake bites or whatever. And then after 5 or 6 years, this couple wanted to apply for Australian citizenship. So they applied, and it was rejected because they had a son who had Down syndrome. And so the government officer in charge of their application said, it's not just about you too. All right. I mean, if we give you citizenship, then your son will also come, and he has Down syndrome. And then the Australian state has to provide for the son. Yeah, because he is then disabled and differently abled, and so this would mean extra costs. And so they did the cost benefit analysis, and they said, well, it sounds very heartless, but sorry, we can't give you Australian citizenship. You have to go back to Germany, or you can always volunteer and come and work on a visa or something, but we cannot give you Australian citizenship because your child has Down syndrome. So now this can sound very horrible, right? What the hell? What sort of system is that? But you see, they are not looking at it from the ethical, moral, heart point of view, right? As a government officer, I have to make tough decisions, for example. So it's like, there are all these decisions which can be very, very disturbing to make. For example, let's say I am a captain of a ship, and the ship is going full speed, and it's in a narrow channel. Yeah, and now suddenly I see in front of me is a boat with 5 pensioners, 85-year-old people, sailing in a boat. And so that's one boat on one side, and on the other side is another boat, and that has 10 school children in it. All right, so let me draw that for you. Okay, so this is the ship, and it's coming from here, and this is a narrow channel, and then suddenly here is one boat, and here is another boat. All right, so here's the ship, and it's sailing here, and this is a channel, and now here is one boat. These are rows, not insects. Oaring, oars, sorry. So you're rowing the boat, and so one has old people and one has kids. Yeah, now I have a problem here, right? The problem here is, I mean, there's not enough room in this canal. So as a captain, I have to make a choice now. Either I go left or I go right. Yeah. If I go straight, then everybody dies. It's not my fault, but I don't have that luxury of deciding at this point uh, of anything else. I have to either go left or right. These two are stupid. Maybe, I don't know, whatever. So now, what do I do? If I go left, well, then yeah, the old guys could drown. Is it okay? If I go right, then children drown. Is that okay? Yeah. So of course there are these issues, and we often have these sort of very horrible decisions that have to be made. So that's very often the thing with life. So of course, this is also called utilitarianism. Yeah, and you can read about that. So what are the sources of value for professional ethics? Legal regulation. Of course, the law would say you cannot discriminate. End of the story, right? This is clear. It's based on the law. Men and women are equal. Old and young people are equal. Handicapped people and non-handicapped people are equal. The law may say, for example, that you cannot discriminate on the basis of sex. And of course, in that situation now, what do you do with transsexual people? So again, you have the legal regulation which has to be followed. Then there are professional codes of ethics and conduct for lawyers, and you can see the model rules also in Moodle. Code of conduct for European lawyers, California rules of professional conduct, and they all lay down what are requirements to become a lawyer. What about conflict of interest? What about client information? What about confidentiality? How do you withdraw from a case? How do you take a case? How do you leave a case? How do you discharge yourself? What about violations and how can you get punished? So these laws would also indicate things like, if you're a dishonest lawyer, what should happen with you? Or let's say, you fall in love with, a client. Should you do that? What if you fall in love with the judge? Or what if I am the son-in-law of the judge? So you see all these issues that already come up. So the professional code of conduct for lawyers will deal with that. Then there are organizational code of ethics. If you work in an organization, maybe a government office, maybe a university, maybe a law firm, then they have their own rules. And then there are individual values. We all grew up in a certain system, and we have parents and family and school and friends, and we all know what is right or wrong. So all of these together, all four of these help to form our understanding of the sources for professional ethics. So they come from these different areas. Next, of course, are fee arrangements. And if you were to look at fee arrangements, there are 4 types: flat fee, hourly fee rate, contingency fee, and referral fee. So of course you can read these. Flat fee, get me a divorce and the cost is 500 euros, end of the story. Hourly rate, I charge by the hour, 90 euros, 200 euros per hour. Contingency fee, of course, this is very controversial because this may not be allowed in many countries. In the European Union, as per the code of conduct, it's not usually allowed. It's more allowed in the US. There are pros and cons to that. But of course, you can read about these things here. And then there are some case laws that have been outlined, again, in a very simplistic way, just to explain how things are. So lots of stuff to read on your own, and also, of course, homework too to be done over here. So I'll upload this video along with some other information that I spoke about. So, well, this was a bit of a rush, yeah? Time flew actually. But anyways, thank you for listening to this lecture, and I'll see you again next week. Okay, so until then, have a nice week. Goodbye.